I'm getting chills just thinking about these people. I'm your host Yusuf, and these are the top 10 scariest criminals in the United States that are missing. Make sure you subscribe and ring that bell to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyways, let's find some perps. Number 10, Rufus Henry Ingram. In 1863, Rufus Henry Ingram met George Baker from San Jose, California, who had just come east to join the Confederate Army. Baker complained because the secessionists in California had no experienced leaders. Ingram claimed to have been with Quantrill's raiders during the Lawrence Massacre and became interested in going back with Baker to recruit soldiers for the Southern cause. In early 1864, Rufus Henry Ingram arrived in Santa Clara County with a Confederate commission as captain and with a former undersheriff of Monterey County, Tom Poole, organized about 50 local Knights of the Golden Circle and commanded them in what became known as Captain Ingram's Partisan Rangers. Finding difficulty in raising funds to purchase supplies for his unit, Ingram first planned a raid on San Jose to rob its banks and stores in the manner of Quantrill's raid on Lawrence. A quarrel within the band, however, led to the exposure of the plan to the local sheriff, and it was abandoned. Soon after, Ingram decided to rob shipments of silver from the Comstock lode to Sacramento. On June 30th, Ingram, along with a small detachment, robbed 2 stagecoaches 11 miles east of Placerville of their gold and silver, leaving a letter explaining that they were not bandits, but carrying out a military operation to raise funds for the Confederacy. During the pursuit of his fleeing band, the posse had a gunfight with 2 lawmen at the Somerset house. One of the posse was executed while Poole was wounded and left to be captured. After a 2-day chase, the Placerville posse lost their trail and they got to Santa Clara County a week later. Tom Poole gave a complete confession. The bullion was recovered and he exposed his companions' identities. Regardless, they evaded the search for them in Santa Clara County, and Ingram fled California for Missouri and was never captured afterwards. Number 9, Monica Witt. Monica Alfred Witt is a former United States Air Force technical sergeant and defense contractor who defected to Iran in 2013. She's a fugitive from a United States Department of Justice indictment for espionage against the United States since 2018. Born in Texas, Witt enlisted in the US Air Force in 1997 as a linguist and studied the Persian language at the Defense Language Institute before becoming an airborne cryptologic language analyst. She was then assigned to the Department of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, or OSI, as an enlisted counterintelligence special agent until separating from the Air Force in 2008. She continued working in intelligence as a military contractor until 2010. After her 2012 conversion to Islam in Iran, Witt became increasingly focused on the religion and the region. Her master's degree capstone presentation lauded them both, and she was soon affiliated with Marzia Hashemi, a suspected Iranian intelligence operative. With Hashemi's assistance, Witt defected to Iran in 2013 and provided the Islamic Republic with assistance and intelligence stemming from her work for and with the United States government. Number 8, Alejandro Castillo. Castillo speaks fluent English and Spanish. In 2016, a then 17-year-old Castillo worked at a Shomar's restaurant in Charlotte, North Carolina, and was co-workers with 23-year-old Truck Quan Sandy Lai Lee. The two reportedly briefly dated, and at some point Lee had lent Castillo some money which he never paid back to her. Another co-worker of theirs was 19-year-old Amia Feaster, who was Castillo's new girlfriend after his split from Lee. On August 9th, 2016, Castillo texted Lee saying that he would like to repay her the money she had previously loaned him. Lee agreed to meet Castillo at a Quick Trip, which is some sort of gas station located on Eastway Drive in Charlotte. Castillo was picked up that afternoon by Feaster, who collected him in her red Dodge Caliber and took him to the meeting. Lee was last seen alive at the Quick Trip, where she agreed to meet Castillo. It is believed that instead of repaying her, Castillo forced Lee to withdraw all the money from her bank account, possibly with a gun. According to Lee's uncle, her bank statements showed that she withdrew $1,000 from an ATM. That's not that much money to rob. After this withdrawal, there was no money left in her bank account. Investigators believed that Castillo then drove Lee to a wooded area in Cabarrus County where he shot her once in the head, ending her. Her body was then dumped in a ravine. That's a bit excessive. Castillo and Feaster then fled in Lee's black 4-door 2003 Toyota Corolla. Number 7, Eugene Palmer. A federal arrest warrant was issued for Eugene Palmer on June 10, 2013. He was wanted at the time for an execution he committed. Family members of his have expressed their belief that he passed away in the park. However, according to Haverstraw Police, no body was ever discovered after multiple searches of that area. Palmer depends heavily on medication for a heart condition and diabetes. Eugene Palmer is an outdoorsman and experienced hunter, angler, and hiker, and is also described as a car enthusiast. He has a deformed left thumb. Authorities believed that he may be hiding in Florida or upstate New York, where he has relatives. On May 29th, 2019, Palmer was added to the FBI 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list. On August 17, 2021, acting on a tip, the FBI searched the home of one of Palmer's granddaughters in Warwick, New York, but ultimately found nothing. On July 20th, 2022, very recently, Palmer was removed from the FBI 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list after it was determined that he no longer fit the list criteria. He was replaced by Omar Alexander Cardenas, and despite his removal, he remains a wanted fugitive. Number 6. David Durham. At approximately 10:58 p.m. on January 23, 2011, Lincoln City police officer Stephen Dodds pulled over a 1984 Dodge pickup truck owned by David Anthony Durham of Sauvie Island, Portland, Oregon, for a routine traffic violation in Lincoln City, Oregon. During the interaction, Durham told Dodds that he was driving to a military base in California. At some point during the traffic stop, Durham shot Dodds multiple times in the chest, critically injuring him, and then fled in his vehicle, heading south on Highway 101. Responding police officers spotted Durham's vehicle in Newport and disabled his vehicle with a spike strip near Waldport, just north of Alsea Bay Bridge. Unable to further drive his vehicle, Durham fled on foot into the woods on the west of the highway. Durham's dog, which was in his vehicle, fled to the east. Shortly after, a crab fisherman working by spotlight on Alsea Bay reported gunshots originating from the spit, but could not see the gunman in the darkness. 3 days after Durham's disappearance, his dog was found wandering in Waldport. At least the dog was found. Number 5. Jason Derek Brown. On November 29, 2004, Robert Keith Palomarez, a 24-year-old armored car guard, was carrying the weekend deposits outside the AMC Theater at 4915 E. Ray Road in Phoenix. At approximately 10 in the morning, a hooded gunman ambushed and shot Palomarez with a .45 caliber semi-automatic Glock. 5 out of 6 bullets fired struck Palomarez in the head. Although armed, Palomarez had no time to defend himself. The gunman took a money bag containing $56,000 in cash, ran into a nearby alley, and fled the scene on a bicycle. Soon after being identified as a suspect, Brown fled from Arizona to Henderson, Nevada. He continued on to Las Vegas, where he swapped his BMW M3 for a black Cadillac Escalade he had in storage. That is bougie. What the hell? He then drove to Orange County, California, where he stayed with some relatives until December 6, 2004, when FBI agents carrying out an arrest warrant missed him by 1 hour. Brown apparently used his credit card at a gas station in southern Orange County, traveled to San Diego near the Mexican border, and then all the way to Portland, Oregon. After this, the FBI states that Brown became a ghost and went completely off the grid. Number 4. John Ruffo. Ruffo faced a 150-count indictment charging him with bank fraud, money laundering, wire fraud, and conspiracy. His bail was set at an unusually high $10 million as he was considered a flight risk. As nearly all of Ruffo's known assets and accounts were frozen by the FBI, most of his immediate family put up their homes as collateral to secure his pre-trial release. Ruffo was found guilty on all counts and was sentenced to 17 years in prison. In November 1998, Ruffo failed to turn himself over to the US Marshal Service to begin serving his sentence. His image was captured on CCTV cameras taking money out of an ATM. On the afternoon he was to report, but he was never to be seen nor heard from since. In his wife's last communication with him on the morning of his disappearance, he told her he was meeting with a parole officer but never returned. His car was later recovered by the FBI, abandoned at JFK Airport. 3 months after Ruffo's disappearance, the homes of his wife, mother, mother-in-law, and others were seized by the government as a forfeiture of bond collateral, effectively making them all homeless. Number 3. Michel Barrera. In February 1999, Michel Barrera robbed a bank with an accomplice. They robbed the bank of just over $20,000. 3 months later, on May 1, 1998, Barrera and his accomplice drove to the National Republic Bank in Miami. The two men exited the stolen car and entered the bank. After the robbery was over, the two men got into the stolen vehicle. A police officer then started following them. Barrera fired a shotgun multiple times at the officer. Later that day, Barrera and his accomplice ditched the stolen car. They then stole another vehicle from a man. The accomplice in the bank robbery was arrested by Miami-Dade police. Barrera, though, managed to evade the police. He later then disappeared. Almost 9 years later, in March 2007, a 52-year-old woman, Randy Gorenberg, was kidnapped not long after leaving the town center mall in Boca Raton, Florida, on the afternoon of Friday, March 23rd. The abductor drove Gorenberg to the South County Civic Center, shot her, and tossed her body from the passenger side of her Mercedes SUV. At the time of the Gorenberg slaughter, Barrera owned a four-door Chrysler 300. An informant told the PBSO that gang members might have assisted in the Gorenberg execution, but Barrera remains on the loose. Number 2. Vernon Henry. On August 11th or 12th, 1996, a heated and violent argument erupted. Connie Marie Henry said she'd had enough of Vernon being controlling and acting violent toward her and her children. She threatened to leave Vernon at that point. This was right after Heather Janae arrived home from a night with her boyfriend. After around 5 to 8 minutes, Vernon Henry walked angrily to the closet of the residence, grabbed a pistol or revolver, and fatally shot Connie Marie and Heather near the other children. According to one or two younger sons, Henry fled the scene in his red or maroon 1986 Toyota Camry four-door passenger vehicle. The Henry family's then 12-year-old son dialed the 911 emergency number. Another son, aged 7 or 8, woke up after hearing the gunfire. Another son, aged 5, was not awakened by the shots. Those kids are super brave. I wish them all the best, and I'm sure they're doing great right now. Number 1. Adam Emery. On the evening of August 31st, 1990, Adam Emery's 1985 Ford Thunderbird was sideswiped by a passing vehicle while he and his wife Elena were at a Rocky Point restaurant with another couple. Enraged, Emery mistakenly chased down the wrong car and stabbed the driver until they passed with a military knife. The slaughtered driver was 20-year-old Jason Bass. Emery was subsequently released on bail after spending 8 months in jail while his lawyer negotiated putting up money and property as bail. Emery was offered a plea deal in exchange for lesser charges of voluntary manslaughter and a prison term of 5 to 7 years, but he refused to accept the deal, insisting that the ending was in self-defense. Analysis conducted using paint chips from both vehicles determined that someone else had hit Emery. On November 10, 1993, Emery was convicted of second-degree slaughter and was to await formal sentencing. Emery was facing up to 25 years in prison for the slaughter but hadn't been formally sentenced. Emery was released on bail once again and subsequently disappeared hours later, along with his wife. Their car was found abandoned on the Claiborne-Pell Newport Bridge. Prior to their disappearance, the couple were last seen at a Burger King and purchasing wearable exercise weights at the Kelly's Sporting Goods store in Cranston, Rhode Island. In 1994, a skull, later identified as Elena's, was found in the Narragansett Bay below the Newport Bridge. The same day, coincidentally, the houses put up as Adam Emery's bail were being repossessed. In 2004, Emery was declared legally removed. However, there have been multiple sightings of him in 2010. The FBI placed him on their most wanted list. They believe Emery may have traveled to Florida or Italy and have stated that they have no reason to believe Emery is gone. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and comment if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time.